There's a place in Canada where people go to disappear. Not missing person disappear, decapitated disappear. The Nahanni Valley has produced 44 headless corpses in 116 years. Same signature, same 10-mile killing ground, same unsolved case file that's been sitting on RCMP desks since 1908. Willie and Frank McLeod went prospecting for gold. The Mounties found them by their campfire, headless, with Willie's hand still gripping his rifle. He saw it coming and couldn't stop it. Martin Jorgensen built a cabin to winter there in 1917. They found him headless in the ashes, but the coroner's report said his skull was severed before the fire started. Someone was covering tracks. 44 people, 44 missing heads, one active hunting ground that's been operating for over a century. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police have never closed this case because they know what most people refuse to believe. Something in that valley is still killing, still taking heads, still hunting, and it's never been caught. To understand the anomaly, you have to understand the trap. The Nahanni Valley isn't just remote, it is a geological fortress. The South Nahanni River is a 300-mile whitewater gauntlet that rips through the Mackenzie Mountains. You are looking at limestone canyons that drop 3,000 feet straight down, deeper than the Grand Canyon and significantly harder to survive. But the real danger isn't the height, it's the heat. The valley sits on a fault line of thermal springs. This creates a biological impossibility, a microclimate where the valley floor stays green even when the surrounding peaks are frozen at 40 below. But this warmth comes with a cost. It generates permanent, blinding fog banks that can hide a predator 10 feet in front of you. The locals call these mountains the funeral range. They don't use that name for dramatic effect. They use it because once you enter the cut, the river only flows one way. Frank and Willie McLeod were not tourists. They were the sons of a Hudson's Bay factor, raised in the brutal conditions of the Northwest Territories. They carried Winchester rifles. They packed enough supplies to survive an 18-month siege. They knew how to track, they knew how to shoot, and they knew how to disappear. In 1905, they loaded their sleds at Fort Liard. They entered the valley fueled by the tail end of the Yukon gold fever. They had a simple plan: push upriver, extract the gold, and float out with the spring thaw. They vanished. For 2 years, the valley was silent. No smoke signals, no letters, just the fog. In 1908, their brother, Charlie McLeod, led a search party. He wasn't looking for gold anymore. He was looking for bodies. He tracked their route up the river, pushing deeper into the mist until he reached a flat expanse of spruce trees near the riverbank. And there, perfectly preserved by the cold, he found the camp. The camp was undisturbed. The sleds were packed, the tools were organized, but under the spruce trees, Charlie found 2 skeletons. The police report states that the bodies were lying in their sleeping rolls, but the scene wasn't peaceful. It was a freeze frame of a massacre. The brothers had been dead for months, their flesh stripped away by scavengers, but the bones told the story. Both skulls were missing. This wasn't a bear attack. Bears are brutal, but they are messy. They crush bone. They scatter remains. They don't surgically remove a head and vanish with it while leaving the collarbones intact. And then, Charlie found the detail that turned this from a tragedy into a crime scene. Willie McLeod's skeletal hand was still gripping his Winchester rifle. This changes everything we know about the attack. Willie wasn't killed in his sleep. He was awake. He saw something coming out of the fog. He had time to reach for his weapon, but he didn't have time to fire it. Whatever hit them moved faster than a man with a loaded gun could pull a trigger. Charlie loaded his brother's headless remains onto a sled and hauled them out of the valley. The Royal Northwest Mounted Police opened a file. They interrogated local prospectors. They questioned the indigenous guides, but they found nothing. No motive, no suspects, just 2 missing heads. The official ruling was murder by person or persons unknown. The file was shelved. But the valley wasn't done. 9 years later, in 1917, a Swiss prospector named Martin Jorgensen entered the Nahanni. Jorgensen was the opposite of the McLeods. He wasn't a risk taker, he was a fortress builder. He constructed a heavy timber cabin near the river. He built it to withstand the winter, and he built it to keep things out. He struck gold. He wrote letters home claiming he had found enough dust to retire. But just like the McLeods, the silence came. When the search party arrived, they didn't find a fortress. They found a pile of ash. The cabin had been burned to the ground. In the center of the debris, they found Jorgensen's torso. But this time, the killer made a mistake. The body was badly charred, suggesting an accidental fire. But when the coroner examined the remains, he found that the neck vertebrae hadn't been damaged by heat. They had been severed by a sharp instrument. Jorgensen was dead before the fire started. The arson was just a cover-up. And once again, the skull was missing. Now look at the timeline. 1908, 2 men decapitated. 1917, 1 man decapitated. Same valley, same method, same trophy taken. If this was a human serial killer, he was operating in one of the most hostile environments on Earth, leaving no tracks, no witnesses, and surviving sub-zero winters for a decade. If it wasn't a human, then the Dene legends about the Naha tribe, the headhunters of the mountains, weren't legends at all. By 1920, the pattern was impossible to ignore. The police couldn't stop it, so the mapmakers stepped in. They stopped calling it the South Nahanni River Valley. They gave it a new name, a warning label for anyone foolish enough to follow the gold. They called it the Valley of Headless Men. But even the warning didn't stop the body count. In 1945, a miner from Ontario was found in his sleeping bag, headless. In 1969, another prospector vanished, only for his headless torso to be discovered miles from his camp. We are looking at a 60-year killing spree with a perfect success rate. The question isn't just, who is doing this? The question is, why do they only take the heads? In forensic psychology, taking a trophy is a sign of dominance. It's not about the kill, it's about ownership. Whoever or whatever is in that valley doesn't just want you dead. It wants you to know that you are prey. The police files are real, the bodies are real, and the heads are still out there, somewhere in the canyons. So, who is the executioner? If you try to fit this into a standard criminal profile, the math doesn't work. A human serial killer doesn't operate for 60 years across a jagged wilderness without making a mistake, without aging, and without getting caught. The logistics are impossible. The winter alone kills the unprepared in 48 hours. But the Dene people have a different suspect. They don't talk about a lone madman. They talk about a siege. For generations, the oral history of the Nahanni has warned of the Naha, a tribe of mountain-dwelling warriors who are physically distinct from the local population. The legends describe them as giants, ruthless raiders who would descend from the high canyons to kill, decapitate their enemies, and vanish back into the upper gorge. But here is the historical anomaly that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Just before the first gold rush, the Naha disappeared. Entirely. No mass graves, no migration records. The anthropologists say they must have died out or moved south. But the Dene believe they simply changed tactics. They believe the Naha realized that the miners were coming for the gold, so they retreated deeper into the fortress to protect it. And geologically, that is terrifyingly plausible. In the 1930s, bush pilots began reporting something impossible. They looked down into the deepest cuts of the Nahanni and saw green. They called it the Tropical Valley. We now know they were seeing thermal pockets. The hot springs in the valley are so powerful they create isolated microclimates where the snow never settles. You could be freezing to death on the peak, while 2,000 feet below you, a hidden ecosystem is thriving in the mist. If you wanted to hide a lost civilization or a predator that evolution forgot, this is the exact coordinate you would choose. The McLeods didn't just walk into the woods, they walked into a stronghold, and the owners were home. Today, the Nahanni is a national park. You can book a tour, you can raft the river. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But if you talk to the rangers, the tone changes. They will give you a specific set of rules. Stay on the river, don't go up the side creeks, and never, ever go alone. 44 people have died or vanished in this valley since 1908. The gold is likely still there, sitting in the creek beds. The McLeod brothers' heads are still missing, hidden somewhere in the limestone fissures. And whatever hunted them might just be waiting for us to get arrogant again. The map is finished, but the valley is not empty.